live. Tuesday, 2:30, Awesemo.com PGA show. Myself, Ben Rasa, here with FantasyGolfMan Tim Frank. 1 week in the books. We survived Colonial. We're going to talk a little about that. We're going to talk a little, of course, about Super Draft. We're going to talk a lot about RBC Heritage. Tim, what'd you make of the first week back?
A slight disaster, I guess I would say. How I would classify that. Webb, of course, just awful.
What did I say?
Yeah,
Got that one right. Yeah. Finally.
I should not listen to myself. I should just listen to you. It was interesting, I guess, to see the great players, the long players, bulky Bryson just trying to smash it 350 everywhere around Colonial. Kind of making course fit look completely irrelevant. And I said course fit was dead. I don't know. I think I might walk that back a little bit this week, though. But it was super interesting. I just enjoyed seeing such a stacked field, especially at a course like that, because we normally don't get that. We have the same thing again this week. These shorter courses usually have weaker fields. So it was really cool to see how, the stars and the studs and the guys that hit it 350 off the tee, how they attacked that course. So I think we can take a little bit away from what we saw last week, similar type of course, but even maybe more of a short hitters course than Colonial.
It was, first of all, having no fans, I honestly thought might have been a positive. It didn't bother me at all. The golf was great. I tweeted this, and it was obviously somewhat joking, but I honestly wasn't. I felt rusty sweating it. Like, I was dying Sunday. It was when Xander was making those putts. I had a sweat in showdown, and I was fortunate enough to grab a seat. I was dying. Like, it felt like I was sweating a full milli or something. I'm not in DFS golf shape just yet.
Well, the problem is you didn't stay in shape by playing League of Legends or CSGO or all that stuff. I was in mid-season form. But yeah, just glued to the TV coming down the stretch. My boy Rose, he could have – I wrote him off. I wrote Rose off early. And he could have turned the week around had he made the putt on 18 and snuck into the playoff.
He blew it Saturday. Late, he gave strokes away that he shouldn't have, and those came back to bite him.
He really did. But great event to start us off back on the restart.
Oh, it's phenomenal. I see we got a lot of regulars in chat. What's up, everybody? If you can hit the like button right off the bat, helps us out. I will say this: 6 of 6. It was around 4% in tournaments. In double ups, it was under 1%. So if you played a handful of lineups, I saw some people do the old, like, oh man, I only got 3 of 20, 6 of 6. So that means you just crushed unmercifully the field. So it was very difficult.
It was a bloodbath last week. And I guess that's kind of to be expected, especially when you have a strong field. So there was a lot of great players that missed the cut. Guys like Rahm, guys like Webb, and Webb being the chalk. I mean, that had disaster written all over it. There's no doubt about it.
You know what had disaster written all over it? And we're going to move on shortly, but I try every week. I review my play. Jason Day, I didn't think that was a disaster, but I was really happy with what I did. It didn't bother me. How I should not have got sucked into Ryan Palmer. We had talked about this, the member angle. It never comes to fruition. He was so popular. What a mistake. Him and Russell Knox were the two guys that I really felt I misstepped on last week.
Yeah, Knox was tough because the course was there. He was awful. He was in a range with a lot of guys, so it's there was a lot of pivots. You could have gone a lot of directions, and I didn't play Knox, but the people that landed on Knox, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say that he was a bad play, but he was awful. But there was just so many plays in that range. It was like, were you going to hit the landmines? Were you going to get past it? But yeah, Knox was really bad. That was surprising to me.
It was, like Bubba was making a run.
Oh my God. I was just like, this is not happening, Bubba. It really did. It seemed like course fit was dead at some point, but I don't know. A lot of the longer guys like Rahm struggled. Rory, obviously awful on Sunday. Berger and Morikawa, great players, not overpowering players, either of them. So I don't know. I feel more confused this week than I did last week. I don't know.
I'm with you there.
I should feel like we have a week's worth of information. No. It's like the opposite. I'm more confused than I was last week now.
Oh, I'm definitely. And we're going to, it's because I can tell you, I don't want to spoil the show. It's because Russell Henley's in the field. That when he's in the field, all hell breaks loose. But we're going to talk, what I want to say, Super Draft sponsoring the show. And we appreciate that. If you have not gone over there, you're making a mistake. Super Draft is changing the way we play fantasy. They have the multiplier mode. Talked about it a lot. Basically what we do, we've got the top golfers at a 1x multiplier. And as you work down, you can take anybody you want. You're not restricted, but you're going to get incentivized to play some lesser known names. So I'm just going to use an example. We'll go with Graham McDowell. He's 1.4x this week. So if you think he can hang in, you're going to get a big payoff there. Obviously, that site, not as shark infested. So if you haven't signed up over there, definitely do it. Promo code Awesemo, $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. You can download it in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. Superdraft, no limits, more winning. Not a bad slogan. Anyway, we're going to be talking about their multiplier mode throughout the show. But let's get to it. Talk a little about Harbortown, one of your favorites. That is where we are. RBC Heritage played at Harbortown, and then we'll dive into the 10K.
I think it is my favorite. I think it's my favorite course on tour.
That's
7,100 yard, par 71. Pete Dye design. So we know Pete Dye likes to kind of create short, tight courses where accuracy is at a premium, and this is kind of like the pinnacle of all of that, right on the coast. So wind could be a factor. I haven't checked out the weather this week, but if it's windy, that's going to create some problems because it is right on the coast. But yeah, one of maybe the pinnacle of the short hitters courses, you just look back at the winners. Last two were CT Pan, Satoshi Kodaira. But then before that, you have Wes Bryan, Brandon Grace, a little bit of an outlier there, but Furyk, Kuchar, GMAC, Pedersen, Snedeker, Furyk, Brian Gay, just like year after year after year, super short hitters. A lot of that maybe has to do with the fact that this hasn't always been the strongest field. Usually guys like Sneds, guys like Kuchar have been the elite players in the field. So, I mean, maybe it's a little more nuanced than saying it's just, like last week. I think the longer hitters can contend, but we're just another week where they're at a little bit of a disadvantage, and I think even more so than last week. I mean, here, there's overhanging trees and stuff. You'll see guys in the fairway that have don't even have a clean look at the hole. You have to be not only in the fairway, but on the right side of the fairway. Colonial has some dog legs that you can cut with big drives. There's not so much of that here. So there's really not a lot of reward for being long off the tee. That being said, like we've said almost every week, the longer hitters are the best players in the world. So some of them are going to be there. Some of them are going to struggle. It's going to have to be trying to figure out where you want to go up top. But really, the 3 par 5s, only one of them, 502 yards, only one of them really yields eagles. So not a lot of eagles here. And I guess depending on the wind, that has a huge factor on whether it plays easier or tougher. It can kind of go either way depending on weather.
When I think of the super short, this is the course I think of. This is the course where bombers, to me, have the most disadvantage, even though it's not a disadvantage. It's just less of an advantage. We saw, Bryson, and we're going to talk about him. You're not rewarded for distance in the sense that I don't think it makes a ton of sense at Colonial, but you can do it if you want on most of these holes. Here, there are legitimate holes where you actually can't do it. I don't know what that's going to do to these guys. There's not a coincidence that we haven't seen most of the big names here. When you look at the course history, you're not going to find much of anything on Rory and Rahm and even JT. And, these guys, Harbortown is kind of a unique track. So it's got 3 par 5s, but I really think that you don't want to overreact to maybe seeing some bombers have some success. I'm not saying just throw them away, but this has a clear type of player. You read off the winners. It's a second shot golf course. I don't know how anyone could say differently, honestly.
No, and you think about a guy that we didn't list or hasn't won here, but maybe the best course history of anyone at any course, Luke Donald. historically awful driver of the ball, but good irons, amazing short game. You look at Wes Bryan, literally one of the worst drivers of the golf ball to ever play on the PGA Tour.
Why did I hate?
He won here. There's not a course where driving is less important. I'll just say that. I don't want to get into advantage, disadvantage, whatever. There's not a course on tour where driving the ball is less important. So, do with that what you want. But that's how I feel about Harbour Town.
Well, let's get into it. All right, we got. Normally I say the big four. We got a 6-pack up top, 10K plus. Rory is the only 11K. He's 11.3. JT, Bryson, Rahm, Xander, and Morikawa, who lost in the playoff. Really interesting because, like I said, these big-time hitters, they haven't played here. They're still the best players in the world. And then you got Morikawa, who, I can't say he doesn't belong here, but at the same time, he doesn't belong here. So what do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the top, this is not going to be a surprise to anybody. I like JT at 10-9. 10th last week. The approach game was awesome. Gained 6.8 on approach. He was second in the field last week and struggled off the tee. He was minus 1.6 off the tee. So that was kind of the leak in his game. Here, I mean, even driver's even less important than it was last week. Approach is more important than it was last week, even though they are similar courses. And I like, he won at Honda, and all these guys can win anywhere. But I mean, you take the driver out of his hands. I don't feel like it's huge of a disadvantage as with a guy like Rahm or maybe Bryson, even though Bryson was great. I just don't think – I think Bryson will be popular because people loved bulky Bryson. People love the way he played. He was awesome last week. I think people are going to look for him to do to Harbour Town what he did to Colonial, and I just, like we said, I don't think that's really possible, and I think he'll be popular. Rory, I don't know what to make of Rory. Obviously, it's not a great course fit, but he was playing well at Colonial until Friday. He's the best player in the world. Even if you take the driver out of his hands and you look at approach, around the green, putting, I mean, he has great numbers for the last 2 years, even without the driver. Not sure what to make of him. A little pricey. I prefer JT. I guess he's my guy at the top. But, I mean, I think this is another week where I feel more comfortable with a balanced build because I think some of the players I like better are in the 8 and 9K range.
Yeah, I mean, listen, every week it's going to be a common theme. You're going to be able to start with any of these guys and feel fine. There's a reason they're north of 10K. They're either hitting the ground running like Xander and Morikawa, or they're 4 of the, 6, 8 best players in the world with Rahm, Bryson, JT, and Rory. Bryson is, I think, going to be maybe the most popular, so that does temper it, but I've never, even with Rory, I've never seen someone drive the ball. At one point, he was I've never seen something like that, honestly, last week with Bryson.
No, he's like just gone to a whole nother level that has never been done before. It feels like if you took one of those like long drive competition guys from like the 2000s when you would watch like ESPN at 4 a.m. or something. It feels like if you took one of those guys and put him on tour with a tour level, approach game and short game and everything. It's amazing what he's doing out there. I mean,
in his last 5 events, he's gaining 6 strokes off the tee. That is there's nothing to really compare that to. But this course will mitigate that. I don't even know if you could do that here, regardless of how you drove it.
Yeah, I'd like to see like what the best driving I feel like the best driving performance though is somebody that hit like
every fairway,
56 fairways or something, I don't think it would be done with all length.
So last year at 2019 RBC Heritage, DJ led the field off the tee, 4.7. But then you've got Hadwin, Fitzpatrick, Boo Weekley, and Kevin Na. So right. Obviously those guys are not doing it with length.
Right. Yeah.
And there's no 6 strokes. I mean, Bryson last week gained 7.3 off the tee. I don't think that would even be possible.
That's amazing for a course that you don't really hit driver on.
I will say I have no problem going back to Rahm. Him missing the cut means absolutely nothing to me. He's going to be just fine. And then, I mean, we'll talk last guy. I mean, what do you make of Morikawa? Is he last of the 6 or what? I mean,
I don't know, man. It feels like he's like Bitcoin, right? It's like he just is like this rocket trajectory that people that were in early are just printing money and telling us how stupid we are. And now he's at like 20K and I'm not buying now. It's like, we didn't go to the wedding. Like, let's just skip the funeral. He's just like at an all-time high. I mean, he fits perfectly. I shouldn't say he fits perfectly. The approach game is great, which is good. The short game is not good. I guess I like that his approach game is solid, but no, I am not playing him at 10K. I think he's too expensive. I think he's going to be fairly popular. And I haven't played him very much at all. I'm not hopping in at like an all-time high right now.
That's the tricky part. You want to evaluate every week on its own merit. And if you're priced out a little, then you kind of just have to wait till it regresses. And Colin Morikawa is amazing, but he's not going to make every single cut on tour. Have a funny feeling that he may get cut at some point,
Maybe once or twice.
And this is a weird course. I will say that, like, you can't. His around the green game is weak, but it's masked because his approach game is maybe the best in the world. Honestly, like, it's unbelievable. If he gets to these courses, and this is a course that kind of demands some scrambling, it could be problematic. And when you talk about top 65 in ties, it doesn't take that much to get cut. You don't have to be awful. We saw that with Rahm last week. He wasn't awful. He just wasn't as crisp. Then he got to Friday, missed a couple putts, and boom, you're gone. So not for me. Let's go down. Here we go. We're going to the 9Ks. We've got Sungjae Im leading us off at 9,700. We've got Decky. We got Rose at small range, and Webb. These are that next batch, even on Super Draft, where you're going to find them, in the 1.2-ish range, something like that. What do you make of these four? Would you be comfortable starting with them?
Yeah, I actually like all four of these guys. I think they are better fits for the course than the big guns, just because they don't rely on their driver as much, and more reasonably priced. I think this is an event where you could see kind of a wonky leaderboard. I mean, I'm not going to say all these guys are going to miss the cut, but it wouldn't surprise me to tune in Sunday and see some weird names at the top. And less of kind of like a star-studded leaderboard than we saw last week, just because of the type of course this is. I guess I would start. My favorite play is going to be Rose again at 9,200. Price just doesn't really make sense to me because last week he was 9K, and we had no information. We were just kind of going blind based on the fact that he's been a great player for a long time and he ditched the Hanma clubs. And only a $200 price increase after he played great, finished third. The ball striking was good, gained 5 strokes with the ball striking. I don't know if it's a course history thing. Last week he had the win at Colonial. Maybe that made him a little more expensive. This week he has no course history. But I just think, he was a good play last week when we didn't know anything about him. You get a great event under his belt and only a $200 increase. I like him. So he's probably my favorite play in this range. But I mean, honestly, all these guys, good, well-rounded golfers. Look at Decky, great short game. Sungjae, great all-around game. I mean, I like all these guys.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to, so we didn't see Hideki. He was one of the few that did not play, but he was on fire when we saw him at the Players, of course. And this is a great course for him. Honestly, he can lean on the approach game. He needs to make some putts, but that's no different than most courses. You need to putt. Sungjae just does work. I was not on Webb last week. I don't know how you bragging. Don't. What?
Are you bragging?
No, I'm not bragging because I did too many stupid things to negate it. It could have been. Listen, I got out of it really fortunate, but I had 0% Webb and Harris English. And I didn't take advantage of it because I substituted equally bizarro plays. So whatever, cash, it was a lot easier in cash, I will say that. But Webb clearly loves this course. His game fits. He's going to be very popular still, but I'm going to be a lot more apt to go to him here than I was last week, obviously. If you had to pick one, do you have a favorite in the 9K, or are you just really going to balance?
Rose, for sure. Like I said, I just don't think the $200 is enough of an increase because last week we had no info and people, we were rewarded at 9K. Now it's like, man, he looks great and not much of a price increase. We've seen how long of a sample size of him being one of the best players in the world. I like him. I mean, Webb, I feel like he's going to be almost as chalky this week. It's just how DFS is these days. I think if this was 3 years ago, nobody would own him because everyone would say, oh, he missed the cut. He looks bad. Everyone's sharper now. They know that 1 week honestly doesn't really matter. They're going to see that he's a great course fit. They're going to see that he has good course history. He's cheap. And I think people are, and especially people that got burned by him last week, they might say, I don't want to miss out on this week when I know he's going to play well. So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he was one of the highest owned players again this week. What do you think about his ownership?
Yeah. I mean, we have right now, and it's early, but we have fantastic ownership projections in the first run here. We have Webb as the highest owned player.
I would agree. I think it's going to happen again this week because people are sharper and they're disregarding one poor week. A couple of years ago, I think he would be, 12% owned.
Easy transition, and we can bounce into the 8K range because of this. Do you think Berger will be very low owned coming off the win? That's something we always see. The winner of the last week, a lot of times people jump off. I'm guilty of it, and I am jumping off. I mean, we can talk about him, and then I will open it up because we got about 10 guys in the 8K range.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be very owned at all. I mean, it's just a stacked range. Like if you look from 9,500 to 8,500, so guys that are within $400, $500, $600 of him, you have, great plays above him. You have the best players in the world cheaper than him, although they're not in great form. They're not great course fits. But I mean, yeah, I think there's great plays all around him. And like you said, people don't like going back to a guy that just won, especially if it's not an elite player. I think guys like Rory, guys like JT, we feel like they can rattle off back-to-back wins or at least win and then contend again the next week. I think there's a feeling with some of the lesser players that it's like, oh, they won and now they're going to relax or whatever. They're not going to bring it this week. So I don't really like Berger all that much, but I mean, obviously he was great last week.
He was great. Listen, and it's just really tough because look where he was priced last week and now look where he's priced this week. It's a huge jump. It's not like when JT wins, he goes from like 10,900 to 11,200 and he's at the top at where he basically belongs anyway. When Rory wins, it's the same thing. When someone like Daniel Berger wins, he is now sandwiched between Webb and Patrick Reed this week. I can't get there. That's not going to happen. But chat wants to know, everybody's been waiting for it. The man gained 8.6 strokes on the greens last week. First in the field. He came in 10th. It's Jordan Spieth. A, were you encouraged by his play? And B, what do you make of him this week?
No, I mean, this is what he has done is either be terrible or be terrible and putt like a god. Like those are the two Spieths you get. And you know what? Last week he putted like a god. He was T10. Everybody thinks Spieth is back. Please, if you don't subscribe to Awesemo, please play Jordan Spieth. If you're a sub at Awesemo, don't play Jordan Spieth. It's
now when it goes wrong, I don't even have to take the blame.
No, I mean, look, have we ever decided we were playing or betting a guy just based on that he's a good putter? No, we've always said high variance in putting. We can't count on that from week to week. And with Spieth, the only times in the last year and a half he's had good finishes is when he has had an insanely hot putter. And you can't count on that from week to week.
Here's the thing with Spieth. He's popular. That's the thing that gets. If Spieth was like Daniel Berger and he was going to be 6% owned, I would take 10% and say we know he's got that ceiling. But to me, this is pretty simple. I didn't have him last week. If you told me any player gained 8.6 strokes putting, where would they finish? I would say, they'd probably be in the top 10. He came in 10th. What does that really mean? He gained 1.5 strokes off the tee. He lost 1.4 with the irons, and he gained 0 around the green. So he basically gained nothing anywhere else, and then he gained 8.5 strokes putting. I don't get it. I don't see why that's good. So not for me, again, easy fade.
Because people just see the T10. I mean, I've I've gotten past. I almost don't even look at
the result.
finishing position. If you could give me one thing from last week, it's either finishing position or the stats. Without the finishing position, I would 100% take the stats. I don't care how they finished. I want to see what they did, how they got there. And then you can extrapolate more from that than you can by just saying the guy finished T10.
Yeah.
And like you said, popular people are going to see the T10, think he's back, has a decent course history, decent course fit. He did nothing to make me think that he's going to play well this week.
And listen, Chad, I get it. I get that Spieth is always polarizing. I like Spieth personally. I know it seems like I hate him. I just can't back a guy like that. But this is really interesting. Ryan W., really sharp comment. I heard this course had the lowest average putts per green last year. The thing that I take from that is that it's a very small green complex at times. So you can make some putts. It's not very challenging. It's just the rest of your game is going to have to set you up. And again, I'm just not going to use Spieth's ownership is going to hold because of the result, not because of the stats. I think that's the easiest way I can sum it up. If he didn't come in 10th, people would be less likely to play him, but he came in 10th because he gained strokes putting again. And that's not anything that you can, even though he's an incredible putter, we're not going Denny McCarthy on the show. That's not what we do on Tuesdays at 2:30, chat. You know this.
And even Denny McCarthy, you cannot count on anything. You just cannot count on the putter. You do not know when it's coming. Guys are better putters than others. I'm not denying that guys are good putters, guys are bad putters, but in the grand scheme of things, you cannot say, okay, this is the week.
Denny McCarthy might be different. I'm not joking. The rest of his game though is so weak.
Bad though. It's so bad that it might not matter how many.
But like, I asked this to some people the other day, and we'll get back to it. But honestly, if you take Griot and you take Denny McCarthy, what do you think the odds are that Denny McCarthy beats Griot putting in a given week? Like minus 1,000?
Yeah, I was going to say 9 out of 10 times.
Okay, yeah, that's insane. Just to speak to. Anyway, we still have. It's amazing. We're in the mid 8K range, and we're talking on Super Draft. Some guys that are up possibly in the 1.2x region. We've got Brooks and Dustin Johnson there at 86 and 8,500. Then we've got Gary Woodland, who is going to be really popular. Kuchar, who missed the cut with a bad double bogey on 18 on Friday. Tony Finau, Ricky Fowler, sharp call by you on Abraham Answer, and Ty Hatton. What do you make of the rest of the eights?
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, what's really not to like about Woodland? He'll be very popular, like you said. But the irons were just on fire. Led the field in approach last week, gained 8.7 on approach. Just amazing. And we've said it time and time again. Does better on shorter courses. Won the U.S. Open at Pebble. GMAC won the U.S. Open at Pebble, and he won here. Sneds has a great record at Pebble, and he's won here. Somewhat similar courses. I mean, different Poe Greens versus Bermuda, but, short seaside tracks. We haven't seen Woodland here, but I think it's a good course for him. I like him. He'll be popular. The pivot off of him, I guess for me would be DJ at 8,500. Yeah. Played here the last 2 years after almost never playing here. Wouldn't think it was a great course fit. T28, T16, but he was wasn't he the
and then he blew up
last year? Was he winning?
Yeah, and then he really blew up.
And I think that can happen to guys who rely on driver. I think that's it's hard to hang on for 72 holes here. But I guess he would be the pivot for me. I'm just ridiculously cheap price. He's at least seen the course the last 2 years and been okay. So yeah, I guess I would go DJ over Brooks. I guess, do you have a preference between those two?
Ooh, that's really close. I'd probably coin flip it, but I'd lean DJ if I had to choose. They both fit exactly what you're talking about. They're the pivots off Spieth and Woodland and Kuchar, all who are going to be popular. Two of those three, I get it. I think Woodland and Kuchar make for fine plays. I got to ask you before we move to the sevens about Ricky, though. He was bad again. He posed a little rally on Friday, but we're talking about rallies to get in positions to make cuts. I know there's been talk with the swing change and whatnot, but man, even the putting is not what it was. Do you have any interest in backing Fowler, or are you just going to wait and see?
Yeah, I mean, the price is so cheap. For a guy who's been a great player on tour for what, 10 years, wins a lot of, I mean, people give him crap because he doesn't win as much as he should. He doesn't win majors. But I mean, he wins events. And I
He has
think
5 wins.
8,100. What's that?
He has 5 wins on tour. Good ones.
And this is a decent track for him. He doesn't rely on length. He has a great short game. We're going to see a lot of overreactions to what happened last week. Regardless of whether it was a miscut or the stats were terrible. I mean, you can take a little bit from that. But I mean, how many times have we seen a guy look lost one week? Like, oh my God, he lost 5 shots on approach. And then the next week, it's like just back to normal or playing great. I mean, it happens. I think people overreact to one week. The pricing has dropped. I don't love him, but I mean, I definitely see the reasons for wanting to play him. I mean, 8,100 is kind of ridiculous at a track that's, I think, at least decent for him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a Ricky guy. I'm definitely concerned about the game, but we're talking about possibly your third man in. I'm not going crazy with it because I don't know where the game is. But just to give you some context, last year, January 24th, he came in 66 at the Farmers. He lost 5 strokes on the approach. The week after that was Waste Management, and he won. These guys, it can change on a fly. And just for context, he gained 3 strokes with the irons the next week. So Ricky, I know, can turn it on. He's got to be sharper, but I'm still going to back him. I actually bet him at 60-1 in this field, which is just ridiculous. So that's neither here nor there, but let's get to the mid-range. Before I do, I just want to say, chat, we got a lot of people in here. I really like it. I like what we're doing. We got some good thoughts. If you can hit the like button, I already talked about Super Draft. We're obviously encouraging everyone to go over there and try it out, but hit that like button. It really helps us out. And then we can get a little egregious. Scotty Scheffler has withdrawn, in case you didn't know that, but we kick off the 7s with Jason Kokrak. Was not in the tournament, but he wasn't out of it either. So good for him at 7,900. Fitzy, Shane Lowry, no dice last week. There's about 40 guys in this range, so I'm not going to read them all. We'll start with the high 7s, Tim. Usti, Billy Ho, Grace, what say you?
Oh, I don't like anybody really all the way at the top. I guess I would start with 2 guys who, SEC guys, good course fit, Bermuda guys, Billy Ho, Kisner, both have great course history here. Nothing great out of them last week. Kisner, the ball striking was decent, gained 3.5. But I mean, this is it. This is the perfect fit for him. He has a 7th, an 11th, a 2nd. We've seen him play great week in and week out at these short tracks like Colonial, like Harbor Town. I just think it's perfect for him. So I kind of put Billy Ho and him in the same bucket. But there's kind of a lot of different routes you could go here. Your boy Day at 7,600. I mean, the price just keeps dropping. I don't know what to do with him. I guess, God, I feel like I'm just falling right back into the course fit trap that I said I wasn't going to fall into.
I'm telling you right now. So Day is a pure flyer. We're talking about a milli maker that's almost 50% to first. I get it. If you're going to go to Day because you think he's got win equity there, and I probably will in some regard, his game is lost though. It's really tough, but I got the guy. And this is not like, oh, I'm going to the well. Ian Poulter sets up perfectly, and he's been playing good for a while now. He's going to be popular, but he's coming off, hasn't missed a cut in 2020. He was 29th last week. He loves RBC Heritage. He should love it. I mean, how can you not back him at 7,600?
Gained a lot of strokes with the short game last week, though. I don't know.
But
no, that's.
Let me see this before we say something crazy.
Yeah, he
did. But you know what? Honestly, Tim, if you have it in front of you, that's kind of a profile for success here. So last week he lost half a stroke off the tee, gained at 7/10 with the approach, 1.3 around the green, 3.3 with the putter. Like, if you're going to bleed somewhere, it's off the tee here. Is it not?
No, you are correct. I mean, and yes, the last 3 years has been great here. 10th, 7th, 11th.
I just don't. Maybe I'm a I'm not a Hovland guy. Like, I think he's
Not
got some
here.
talent, but
Definitely
people
not.
love him.
I mean, he smashes off the tee. He's a great ball striker. Awful short game. I mean, he said his chipping is horrendous. I don't. You don't want anybody around the green. You're going to need to use the around the green at some point this week. These are the smallest greens on tour. The more the wind blows, the more that comes into effect.
Morikawa.
Yeah,
We'll see.
no, we're not playing Morikawa. We've already decided that.
Um,
I'm going Raiden, Joel,
Bucket hat.
Damon, Bucket Hat this week at 7,500. He was good last week. He's one of the
Really good.
Yeah. I had 7th in approach, 9th in ball striking. Not good around the green. Lost 1.4, but I mean I like him at 7,500. He struck it great. Shot like 53 or something during the
It's
break.
lower every time.
Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, something like that. He was playing with like Chris Bryant or something.
What about? So Benny On made a 9 at some point.
That'll hurt.
Didn't know how he did that. I feel pretty comfortable going back to him. He lost 3.3 with the putter, and I say this, not joking. That's actually not that bad for him.
I thought he turned the putter around though before the break.
There's no turning it around. JT Poston is there as well. These are all playable guys. I think I would go right down the list. I'd go Benny On to Damon to Poston. Dive into that tomorrow with Jason Roslin on Live Before Lock because it's going to be very close between them. And now we have the bottom half of this range. There's so many names here, starting with Bubba, Neiman, HV3, who is in the mix, Corey Connors, Rafa, Sergio. What do you make of the low sevens? Do you have plays here?
I think Rafa's playable again at 7,400. Played well, T23 last week. Connors and HV3 are like the same. It's like, what do you want to do? They're going to strike it great. They're probably not going to putt. They're, if you look at the numbers from last week, the ball striking was great, especially for HV3. But I don't know, not the best course fits. Connors can't scramble. I don't think HV3 can scramble either. So similar types of play. I think you can go there. I don't love them. I'm going to Sergio again at 7,300. I don't know. It's like you could play Ricky, Sergio, and Day for like an average price of like 7,700 or something ridiculous. I don't know. I just cannot believe that he's 7,300. I'm going on long-term form still, even though we have 1 week under our belt. The putter was horrific for him last week in the miscut. He lost 3.8 with the putter. The approach wasn't good. The off the tee was good. It was kind of a mess, but I just think long-term at 7,300, I think I'd rather go there than trying to play a Corey Connors or an HV3 type.
Think I'm with you. Sergio can be very difficult. I don't know. I have trouble with guys that truly, I don't know where they fall anymore in just a macro view of golf. Like Sergio could be just not good, or he could still be like I don't want to say a top end player, but pretty close. So that's where it's tricky for me. A lot of Euros are like that. Norin just got brought up in chat. He's another one. It's just very difficult for me to kind of conceptually grasp where he belongs. He's flat 7. I think I'd try to go up a little bit. We got Bud Cauley, who I play every single week. And you know what happens? It works out every week. It's not great, but he just gets it done. You have any interest in just using him or Brian Harman, who, again, a lot of people are going to be on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I prefer Harman. I don't really want to go back to a popular Harman. How did we not bet Luke List on the Korn Ferry Tour?
I know. I might bet Chris Kirk on the Korn Ferry Tour this week.
It feels really bad that a guy that everyone was waiting for to win on the PGA Tour and betting week in and week out on the PGA Tour tees it up on the Korn Ferry Tour, where he was probably one of the favorites, but was not a prohibitive favorite.
Yeah.
And nobody bet him. That seemed like a mistake by Golf
Twitter. So we got, here we go. The man of the hour. He's back. Russell Henley is in the field. He did not play last week. Apparently, he's been here doing his thing. Do you have any interest in Russell Henley? This is a guy that can just pop out of nowhere. He's a great Bermuda putter. he was on fire what is now months ago. He gained 10.6 strokes on the approach the last time we saw him. That's probably the best number of anyone at any tournament, right?
Oh, yeah, this was the week before the Players.
Yeah, at Honda, he gained 10.6 strokes on the approach.
And then I remember I bet him at the Players, and I think he opened with like an 87 or something.
And then they literally canceled the tournament.
That was the best thing that could have happened. I was praying they canceled that tournament after like halfway through the first round.
So what do you do?
I mean, he's a milli maker play, right?
I think so, but I think Russell Henley is the type of guy, not that he wins often, but he can win tournaments.
Right, and win, and he's won Sony, he's won Honda. I mean, these are similar types of courses.
Shell.
He won at Houston, not quite the same, but yeah, I mean, this is the type of track that he likes. But boy, it's just a real crapshoot with him. So I think, at low ownership, I think he's a great milli maker play. I don't know. It's hard to trust him. It's hard to know what you're getting. But honestly, do we really know what we're getting with any of these guys? We have, 2 or 4 rounds underneath the belt, which really is nothing.
That part is hilarious to me. It seems inherently like, oh, well, man, I can't play guys that I haven't seen last week. The guys you saw last week, you either saw 36 or 72 holes. Like, I don't think that's doing much. So
it would probably be plus EV to just play guys that either played bad last week or didn't play at all.
Yeah,
you'd probably be
Henley
miles ahead of the field this week.
Seriously. And that's not to say that this play, we just had a question about Bubba. He did gain in all 4. He gained 5 strokes putting. I don't have a super aversion to it, but I can't back him at a track like this.
I said last week I couldn't think of a worse track for him, but I've thought of a worse track.
Yeah, it's this.
It's here. It's this week. So yes. No way. I got one for you.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Graham McDowell at 7,200.
Please, floor is yours. Why?
Missed the cut last week, but lost 2.6 putting. Gained 3.2 off the tee and on approach. So putter was not good. Off the tee on approach was fine. Will not find a better fit. This guy is like a serial killer of coastal courses. And it's not like, it started off as a joke. I thought it was funny. Like, GMAC.
Puerto Rico.
It's like insane. The guy is like Pebble, Mayakoba, Puerto Rico, Harbor Town. I mean, literally, if there is water near a course, a giant body of water near this course, he's in play. I don't think people will play him because of the miscut, but he really wasn't that bad. And I don't want to go back to stuff that happened pre-COVID, but it might be relevant for guys that were not really sure, like, what the state of their game was. He was playing good. I mean, he contended at this. I mean, this is a long time ago, and it sounds ridiculous, but I think you can use it in certain instances to say, okay, this guy's game isn't totally dead. He contended at Sony. He won in Saudi. So, I mean,
he's better than I thought.
Yeah, he's not dead and buried. And I think it's a great course fit, and he was good last week. And I think that was one of the things I'm looking for to kind of capitalize on this week. Find the guys maybe that missed the cut or underperformed with the putter. I think people are going to overreact to that. And I think he's a great case. People aren't going to play him. People aren't going to own him. And I like him. But I always like GMAC.
I would have said no chance. He is going to be one of the guys. And again, we're going to talk about this tomorrow a little bit. What you're going to do in this range, in my opinion, is you're going to take the lightning rods for ownership. Probably Brian Harmon, maybe Dahmen, a couple others. And you're going to have 5 or 6 guys that you could reasonably pivot to. To me, you got guys, Russell Henley's, Sergio's, RCB will be another popular guy. Graham McDowell is one of those. If you think, against Harmon, you're getting 1/8 of the ownership or something like that, kind of interesting. Patrick Rogers, Cameron Smith, your boy. What did he do last week? Goodbye. Lost 4.2 on the approach. We're going to move on. So bad. All right, here we go. Best part of the show, the cheapies. Chad is clamoring. We'll start with him. You guys want it. Siwoo Kim, the Pete Dye man who can win out of nowhere. He's 6,700. Then we'll go back up. Where is he on Super Draft? Let's see. Siwoo Kim. I broke the thing. I can't find him. I'll find that while you talk to me about Siwoo.
Oh, I mean, I he might be somewhat popular this week.
Really?
I think just because of the price and the fact that this is the type of course, but he wasn't good last week. I mean, he lost 1.5. Actually, yeah, that's an average. So he lost 3 strokes on approach. He lost 1.4 putting. I mean, I don't think I'm going to go there. Is he really? Are you playing Siwoo Kim?
No.
Yeah.
So here we go. We got Siwoo Kim. He's a 1.6x multiplier on SuperDraft, which is huge, but and it's tough. I hate to rattle off stats like this because we're going back to 2019, but he has lost in 6 of his last 7 off the tee and 6 of his last 7 with the approach.
That's horrific.
I think we're getting to the point where people are just basing that players win out of nowhere too much. Like, yes, he can pop, but so can a lot of guys. Why would he be why would he be popular? And B, why would he pop here? I don't really get it, even if it is the Pete Dye connection.
Maybe it was just I saw people betting him. Maybe that was, but that sometimes winds and intertwines with ownership. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a Siwoo guy. I'd play Ryan Moore again at 69.
I knew you were going to say that. I played Ryan Moore last week.
It didn't work out last week, but I mean, well documented the types of courses that he plays well at. I think the price is fine.
Griot's here.
I don't know, man. It's like the same thing week in and week out with him. I would not play him on DraftKings because I don't think 6,800 is cheap enough. I'm not averse to a bet though.
What, top 75?
Top 70 to make the cut. Yeah, plus 200 to make the cut. No. God, it's like, I don't know with him, man. Every week the ball striking is great. The putting is horrific. He's just not cheap enough for me. Intrigued as like a top 20 bet or something because I think the course is decent, providing he doesn't have to scramble too much. But eventually, one of these weeks, he's gonna be okay with the putter. But I hate relying on that.
Not this week.
It's not this week. Matthew Wolf, awful course fit.
The EVR is down here. Talk about a forgotten man. He was this price in like WGCs, and now he's at 6,600 on a price play. I don't hate it. I don't love the course for him either, but you could do a lot worse than just bang for your buck in terms of talent down here.
Yeah, definitely one of the most talented players down here.
Any Chesson love? I don't like him because, yeah, he gained a lot on the approach, but if he has to scramble, it could be very problematic. He can't scramble.
He can't, but I mean, some of these guys, if the wind is not up and the irons are dialed in, you could say the same thing about Griot. Like, he might not have to scramble that much because it's a course where it's like the fairways are pretty easy to hit because you're not hitting driver. The irons are dialed in. You're not going to have to scramble too much. I don't mind him. I don't think 6,900 is the best price. I'm not in love, to be honest with you. Below 7K, there's not anybody I saw where I'm like, yeah, this guy is the play down here.
So I think that does jive nicely though with what you said at the beginning. Like, if you're not playing like Rory and like Morikawa together, you don't need to go this low. You can end pretty comfortably. There are guys, though. I mean, Brian Stewart closed with a furious rally. He's a really good putter. Don't mind that. And I preach this a lot. And Tim, you said this too. And I just said it with Hadley, which a little counterintuitive. But if you can do one thing elite with a golfer like this, I'd rather have that than some of these guys that are just like somewhat average at best in all 4. Like, if you can get nuclear hot with your putter or nuclear hot with your irons, at least you have a chance. You have an out. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but at least there's a reasonable avenue for you to get going.
I am with you 100%. Guy like Taylor Gooch or something like that can just go crazy with the irons. Is Doc Redman going to be like the Doc Hunt down here? I feel like he is.
Really?
I mean, he's 6,400. He was 9th in approach last week. He's a Carolina guy, born in North Carolina, went to Clemson.
Tringali's right next to him.
Yeah, Tringali's terrible.
People don't know that though. So maybe they don't think that.
I think Redman is going to be the chalk because people are betting him. People are talking him up, and the approach was really good last week. The approach is always good with him. I like Doc Redman. I don't like a chalky Doc Redman. And he's honestly the only guy, like sub 6,800.
Hold on.
You could make a really, I'm saying like there's a lot of plays down here, but Drewby talks about this a lot on his show. It's like some of these guys, we can articulate a reason to play Doc Redman, and that's why he gets brought up on these podcasts, because it's like, oh, we can say he was 9th in approach last week. If I say, play Duffner or play EVR, it's like we don't really have much to talk about. I'm like, yeah, I think EVR is a good play because he's good, but it's not like a talking point. And so shout out to Drewby. It feels like Redman, he has some things that you can articulate him being a good play, and people are betting him. So I feel like he will end up more owned than he should be.
I mean, yeah, to me, I split things, and this goes for most, not just the bottom end golfers. I split guys into 2 categories. I don't need, honestly, this is how I feel. I don't really need a reason to play someone like EVR or Duffner or guys like that, because I've seen enough of them that I know they can just get it done. If it's a guy that's really unknown or struggling or just not that good, I need to Tyler Duncan was like this for me. Yeah, I'm not just going to play him on merit. Like, I need to find something in the stats. Now Aaron Wise is down here, who is like of all my guys, he might be the top of like my guilty pleasures. I also, I don't think this is a good course for him. I don't know where his game is at. He did have a 3rd at that Bermuda corner. I might play just full of disclosure, I might play like 5% Aaron Wise and just take like 5x on the field. Maybe even more. But you don't need, Chappell is down here. Like, there's another one. Like, if I told you I was playing Chappell just because I wanted to, because he's just a good golfer long term, I mean, what would you say to that?
I would agree, but that doesn't sound very exciting on a.
Well, no, we only bring straight hot takes. We got, like I said, we got Nolan Killian. We got a lot of people watching. We got to keep up the hot takes.
I got the hottest of the hot take.
Is it? Well, there's one extreme. I mean, this is like, we're talking volcano level hot take left.
He's right. He's your brand play. And I bet him.
You what? Hold on.
Yes.
At what? 5,000 to 1?
500 to 1. Bill Haas.
All right. Bill Haas, and I know. Go ahead. You can tell him. You had to have seen?
Well, let's start with the good.
Go ahead.
Well, we'll say he missed the cut.
That was great.
Gained 4.4 on approach in 2 rounds. The irons, unconscious. Gained a stroke off the tee, so that's decent. He's not an off the tee guy, so anything positive off the tee for him is good. He lost almost 9 strokes putting in 2 rounds.
But that's not the most unbelievable part.
It's not?
No.
What did I miss?
He lost 8 of them on Friday.
In 1 round?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Oh, yeah. He went for the all-time record. There's only one guy ever, apparently, who's lost. He lost 8 strokes putting just on Friday.
Did not even know that. Wow. How did I miss that?
I don't know. I mean,
nobody cared.
Do you know how hard that is to do? That is.
That's like almost a half a stroke a hole.
Yeah. That would have been not. So he lost as insane as it was.
I got to go back and look at his shot tracker. I got to see some of these misses.
Yeah, he lost 9, but I believe it was 8.4 on Friday.
That might leave some like mental scarring. Now I feel like
I'm scarred from it just having witnessed it.
If it was just really bad putting over 2 days, I would say, well, but now it's like, man, the point still stands. He hit it great. He putted poorly.
So the biggest problem I have with that play is simply this. I honestly don't know and I haven't built yet, of course. I don't know why I would need a flat 6K guy. If I do, it will be Bill Haas for sure.
I don't think I need him on DraftKings.
Oh, 500 to 1 Print Fest.
Print Fest. I mean, do you remember him getting up and down from the
Water?
the water on 18 at East Lake back in like 2009 to win the FedEx Cup?
Yes. I remember collecting my bogey-free round with 18 straight pars many a times.
That's the Bill Haas I'm thinking of this week.
You could do worse, but
I'm just saying, okay, he's not an off the tee guy. This place does not require off the tee. The irons were very, very good.
You can't lose. Honestly, I'm putting a bow on the show right now. This is the same to me, and I'm being completely serious. This is honestly the same argument about speed. If you lose 8 strokes on a round, what else do you really need to know? You're not going to make the cut. You shouldn't. Like, that's what happens when you lose 8 strokes putting. Just don't do that, and then we'll see. I mean, come on.
Hey, I just go where the numbers tell me to go, man.
I'm with you. I think people like that is why results, I don't want to say they don't matter, but of course, if you have an outlier, like a putting performance that drastic one way, it's going to reflect in the results, even though I don't think the play is that different. Now, if it's long-term, like something like Grillo, well, that's a problem. But anyway, any final thoughts before we duck on out of here for this Tuesday show?
I mean, I think the same as last week. I would say, don't overreact to what happened last week. That little bit, that one data point is going to cause a lot of people to go in that direction based on one data point. I think it's going to be a lot of overreacting. It's going to cause players to be overowned and underowned. And in the end, it really doesn't matter all that much. I'm going to try and follow my own advice and avoid the chalk again this week. I just don't think we have enough to say, wow, we really should be dialed into Gary Woodland based on one good round. I mean, he looks like a great play, but he's going to be overowned. So I'm going to try and listen to my own advice this week, but still another good week to just avoid the chalky players, being that we're only 1 week in. And this is a weird course. It really is a weird course that I think can produce some weird results. I mean, and
we've seen that. There's a lot of guys who have won on tour here that I honestly don't think they'll ever win again.
I mean, Wesley Bryan won.
It's amazing. We really
marinate on that for a minute.
That's word to live by. Wes Bryant did win here. So for me, last thing, and I've been saying this, and we're going to preach this a lot early in the season. You want to identify the chalk, and then you want to decide, do you want to play them or do you want to pivot? You don't want to pivot on all 6. You don't probably want to play all 6 unless it's cash. Build the blend, try to leverage it against the right tournament. And those are concepts that we're really going to dig into tomorrow, 8:30 Eastern, me and Jason Roslin answering your questions, breaking it down. Obviously, if you have not joined, we want you behind the paywall. I have office hours. Tim has office hours. It's a little different. He's just there lurking, doing his thing, telling you to bet Bill Haas. But we have all the resources, Alex Baker, obviously the entire team, producing tools and projections and ownership, all that good stuff. So get behind the paywall. But on that note, we're going to get out of here. Thanks to Super Draft again. Go sign up there. Chat, we love you. We appreciate you. I hope to see you guys tomorrow night. So for me and Tim Frank, Fantasy Golf Man, good luck this week, and we'll see you tomorrow night.